started. And let me bring myself back into view here. Welcome everybody to today's Prezi Like a Pro power session, where we teach you expert level skills in 30 minutes or less. So for today's session, if this is your first time joining one of our Prezi Like a Pro power sessions, you may have noticed that this is scheduled for 45 minutes. That's because our actual content delivery will be about 30 minutes, and then there's about 15 minutes of Q&A following that. So let's go ahead and dive on in here. My name is Kim, and I'm part of the training team here at Prezi. And we're here today to talk about transforming your text into visual stories. Frequently in presentations, we end up putting tons of text and bullet points. And we want to talk today about how we can make your presentations more visually interesting and also easier for your audience to understand. So a couple little pieces of housekeeping for today. We will be spending the first few minutes here in kind of just an overview of some of the concepts, and then we'll actually go into the Prezi Present editor and talk about actually building some content. We won't do a full build, but we'll show you some tips and steps today. And then also any questions that you have, please feel free to put those into the chat or into the Q&A as we're going through. As I said, we'll be doing Q&A more towards the end, but I want to collect those questions as we go and make sure we get them all answered for you today. All right, so let's go ahead and dive on in here. What is a visual story? A visual story can mean many different things, but basically a visual story is a narrative told in visual form. And that can include things like video. It can include things like photos, maybe photojournalism, data visualization, illustrations, and often in your presentations, it's combined with something like you narrating over your presentation. It can be combined with text, and it can also be combined with audio. So, a visual narrative or visual story is not just one thing, it can be many, and we combine many of these elements into a presentation. So we're going to talk today about how you can incorporate some of these. But before we do that, let's just take a look at an example here. Okay, so let's dive into our room here of our visual story. And I'm going to introduce a single element here. So immediately, as we start introducing elements, I want you to go ahead and put into the chat for me what you're seeing, what this visual story says to you. And it can be just a single word. While I'm waiting for some of those responses to come in, first question, will there be a recording of the session? We are recording, and you will receive this in about 24 hours after our session. All right, so again, what is our visual story saying to you as we're adding in elements into the screen? I'm going to be popping some of these in one by one. So first one, workspace. Next response here, oh, boss. Office. So then let's introduce one more element here. Oh, actually, we've got a few more responses coming in. Power. Yeah, that's a great one. So I love that response because there's a lot of I think nuance in visual stories and different ways that it can be interpreted based on the viewer. Okay, so let's introduce one more element here. We've introduced a target now. Okay, so as we introduce a different visual element, it creates a different dynamic within the photo and a different way that your audience might interpret some of the cues that are added in. Right, showing a goal, absolutely. Now let's pan out a little bit further. Add in some extra characters here into our story. Arguing, gossip, interesting. Let's add in another visual cue here. Climbing the ladder, absolutely. Competition. So you can see here, just by adding in different visual elements into our narrative, we're changing the story as we go by giving our audience visual cues and what we want them to pay attention to. And each time we introduce a different visual cue, your mind immediately has some sort of association with it. And we all come to any presentation and any visual with different previous experience and prior associations with visuals, right? So as we're creating our narratives, we want to think about what is this saying to our audience and what are the different ways that it might be interpreted. But all of this we built within just a few simple steps of introducing characters and visual elements here. And we told the story fairly quickly. Yep. So let's take a look at another just very simple example here. What does this sign say to you? You can go ahead and put it in the chat. Children crossing the road. School. Caution. School. Drive slower. Yeah, absolutely. So this is a pretty universally recognized sign that when you're driving, you know that you should proceed with caution because of the color, because of the symbol, you know that children are crossing the road, and because it's accompanied by a parent, you know that there's probably a school in the area. So we know immediately, let's slow down when we see this. Now, what if instead of having this symbol next to the road, we had a symbol with all that text? Young children are likely to cross the road in this area. Watch for them and slow down if they are in the roadway. This is going to be extremely fast for you to recognize. This one is going to be pretty slow. It takes a lot longer for us to read text information than to process something visually. And in fact, we process visual information in the form of images 60,000 times faster than we do text-based information. And that's why incorporating more visuals into your presentation makes it much more powerful for your audience, and they're able to actually focus on you and not your content. So let's take a look at an example. What do I mean by focusing on you, but not your content? Bullet points are nobody's friend when you're presenting. Now, a lot of times we tend to use bullet points when we're organizing text-heavy information, and text-heavy information is not easy for your audience to comprehend. Yet, a lot of times we have a lot of information that we're trying to convey. So what do? Well, the reason that we try to add in bullet points is that because old-fashioned slides, much like this one, that was a format, right? And if you think about how slide-based software was created in the first place, slides were created to replace overhead projectors, which were handwritten and typically text-heavy, right? Drawn with pens, papers, and pens and markers, not pens and papers, pens and markers. And people didn't want to have to recreate these time after time after time. So the slide was introduced as a way for you to quickly organize your text-based information into a way that was visually easy for your audience to read. As presentations have evolved, however, they've turned into something that typically looks much like this. This is a pretty common slide, fake company, we use this for training purposes, but modeled after slides that you actually see in real presentations out in the world. So we're going to do a quick kind of exercise with this as we're building out. We're actually going to transform our presentation slide here for this mock company called Dippler. So what we're going to do, I'm going to pop this up larger so you can actually read all this tiny text that you see here. And as you look over the text, take a look at the information, what we're going to be rebuilding. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the company as we're going through. Just so I know when everyone's had a chance to read this over, after you've read the slide, go ahead and put just done into the chat so I know when we can move on. So here is a slide, and I will tell you a little bit about the company. All right, Dippler. Dippler was founded in 2004 by a group of marketing professionals, and they realized that with the rise of the internet, there's going to be a growing need for companies to connect with their audiences and stand out amongst a ever-growing field of competition. So Dippler team has over 35 years of combined experience, and they bring together a unique team of professionals with backgrounds in marketing, business administration, social media, and software. They continually evolve with the changing market trends, and their current focus is to create brand advocacy through social media engagement and organic brand virality. All right. So let me know in the chat when you are done reading over our slide. Got a couple comments in already. I don't want to read it. It hurts my eyes. It is a lot of information to take in, but we'll be using some of this to rebuild part of the presentation here and take a look at how we can transform this into a more visual story. All right, got a couple dones coming in. I'll wait for just a few more here. It doesn't have to be perfect retention of all the information, just so you have a general idea of what is on here. All right, looks like we've got quite a few dones here. So let's go ahead and come back to the group. There we go. All right, so this was a lot of information to look over. I realize that. And yet this is actually a pretty common slide that we will see in presentations. And even in Prezi, I think that as we're transitioning from a slide-based software and starting to build in Prezi, even though it can be more of a dynamic presentation tool, this is still sort of the norm and how we're used to thinking about building out our presentations. So I want to do a quick exercise with you here, and I'm going to launch a poll. So you'll see this pop up in 1 second here. And it's just 3 quick questions. And actually, let me pop over so this is less distracting here. 3 quick questions to see what we learned about Dippler. So I'll give you a moment to go through this. And let's take a look at the questions we have. First question, what year was Dippler founded in? 1993, 2009, 2013, none of the above. Question number 2, which of the following is not mentioned by Dippler as key to growing customer engagement? Social media, active listening, personalization, strategic ad placement. Keep in mind, this is anonymous. I have no idea who's answering what. And I see there is a typo in our poll here. It says Dipple, not Dippler. Dippler specializes in working with companies in software and business administration. True or false? All right, I'm gonna give about 10 more seconds here. We're almost at 100% completion. All right, and I'm going to close this out, share the results. All right, so I always find this kind of interesting to do, and I'm sure most of you anticipated the result here. But the truth is that the information we collected through our poll is kind of all across the board. And the point of this was that, while I'm showing you this kind of slide here with a lot of information, I'm asking you to read it. Anytime we pop up information on a slide, I'm asking my audience to engage with the information on the slide. However, if I'm also speaking over that, the assumption on the part of my audience is that whatever I'm saying must also be important because I'm speaking about it. So we're immediately giving our audience a very difficult choice to make, and that, do I want to read the very important information in front of me or listen to the very important information being spoken by the presenter? And, of course, what we don't want to do is just read off the slide, because audiences don't love that. However, even when we don't do that, we present slightly different information than what is actually on the slide. So it's very difficult for our audience to retain all that. We can't read and process auditory information at the same time. So if we look at our poll here, we have kind of mixed responses. 57% of you did in fact get the first one correct. None of the above is a correct answer for what year was Dippler founded in. As I was reading, I said 2004. Which of the following is not mentioned by Dippler as key to growing customer engagement? This one was more difficult. Active listening was mentioned. Strategic ad placement was not. Dippler specializes in working with companies in software and business administration. True or false? The answer is, in fact, false. They work with everybody, but their team has a background in both of those fields. All right, so is it important that you got the right or wrong answer? Absolutely not. The point of the exercise was just that we don't want to do this to our audience and give them that kind of cognitive overload. So let's take a look at how we can avoid that. And we've got a few simple tips here. So I'm going to pop those up on the screen here, but let's just start off with kind of a overview here. So when we're thinking about using visuals instead of text, we'll summarize these steps in just a moment here. But first, you're going to start with your blocks of text, right? And frequently when we're building presentations, this is how we start. We start with a script and the overall message that we want to convey to our audience. However, not wanting to put this up into our presentation, the next thing that you want to do is think about how you can pull out keywords from your script. Right, the key parts of your message that you want them to remember. So in this case, again, you don't have to read this information here. There will not be a quiz this time. But here we're going to pull out the words connect, ideas, and sharing. Okay. Once you have your keywords identified, the next step is to transform those into a visual that is going to be easily recognized by your audience, or something that connects specifically with the key message that you want them to remember from your presentation. So in this case, we might choose an icon for connection that looks like this. Ideas, light bulb, very common metaphor there. And sharing, something that hints at the virality of their ideas. All right, so to take those 3 steps and summarize them, you're going to find your keywords. You're going to search for your visuals. and you're going to show the connection between your visuals. Okay. Now, this is the point here, searching for visuals. That's going to be probably my biggest tip for you today, because the thing that I always struggle with myself and what I always hear from users is, well, I'm not that creative. So how can I create a really beautiful creative presentation when I don't have this just at the tip of my fingers? We're going to show you a tip today that will help you find those nice images. And also, I would say, don't overthink it, right? A lot of times when I started off building my own presentations, I would get really hung up on finding the perfect image, wondering if it was exactly what I wanted it to say. Was it complex enough? Was it overly complex? And one of the biggest tips I've gotten from our designers is don't overthink this. Simple is better. So one of the first visuals that you find that seems right can often be the best. And a lot of times going with your gut on that is a good step to take. And then you can go back and refine after you have the entire presentation built out and just see if there's nice cohesion between all your visuals. All right. So now that we've taken a look at our tips, we are going to go behind the scenes here, and we are going to actually go into the editor, take a look at building out some of our content. And if I return back to our very wordy slide here, we're going to take a look at revamping this slide specifically. All right, so give me 1 second. I am going to do a little shuffle around of some of my windows. I'm going to move some of my Zoom controls and minimize my presentation here. And let's pull in our training window. Okay, so here we are on Prezi.com. And I already have our presentation kind of started just from a scratch template here. So blank presentation. So I've opened that up. Oh, I'm going to close out of there because I don't need to. I've opened that up into a separate tab. And all we have here is our presentation title, subtitle, and a blank topic, which if I zoom in has nothing. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do here, I want to actually bring in the topics that I'm going to be sharing based on the slide that we were looking at. Okay. And while I'm at it, let's go ahead and let's just jump ahead to that slide. We'll get a visual. I'm going to move ahead here really quickly. And let's find our slide. There we go. All right, so this is a slide that we're going to be rebuilding. And we can see that on this slide, they have 3 basic topics that they want to share with their audience, right? Strategies, engagement, and purpose. Okay. Now, their overarching theme here is that they're connecting businesses, ideas, and people for greater impact. So we're going to work with these themes that we see here in their slide and build them into our new presentation. So let's go ahead and just give this a title first of all. We're going to call this Dippler Demo, and today is the 24th of October. So there we go. Okay, so let's start off just by adding in the topics that we're going to be using. And there's 3 main topics. So I'm just going to copy and paste here. So we've got 3, and let's retitle them here. So we know we've got strategies, engagement, drag these out here and get them recentered. And we'll worry about making them a little bit more aesthetic in just a little bit. And purpose. Okay. So we've got our 3 topics here. I'm just going to move them off to the side for the moment. Now, our presentation title, if we look back over here to our slide and what we're starting to work with, a couple things that stand out, but really this idea of connection is what resonates the most with me as I'm reading this slide. So it's going to be one of the main themes that I'm going to work with here, and specifically kind of creating more impact through connection. So let's go ahead and we're going to get rid of our subtitle here, but we are going to use our main title. And again, we're just going to worry about aesthetics of this in a moment here. Now, next thing I want to do is bring in something that speaks to this idea of connection. Okay. Now, if you're not sure where to start with visuals, one of the best tips, and in fact, this is something that our designers even do, Google image search can be your best friend. So I've got a tab open here. Let's just search for connection. And in this case, I'm going to just start with the word connection. You might want to add in some refining words such as business. We'll start with just connection and see what happens. But the goal here is that you can kind of get an array of ideas. You'll start to notice that different themes stand out. So a lot of joined hands. Right here, we see some connection and some sharing icons here. Connection in the form of people joining some plugs here. So you want to scroll through and find out the themes that stand out to you the most. Now, you're not going to necessarily be choosing the images here, right? But you want to find the ones that stand out to you. So I actually quite like the images of hands. That's a good one. So as you're thinking about those themes that stand out to you, we want to choose an image for our background that speaks to the theme of connection, right? So let's go to our style tab. And this is where you're going to change the background. And keep in mind that when you're working with Prezi Present, it's a universal background. It's not slide by slide. It's going to be the overview background that is going to live throughout your entire presentation. You'll see what I mean in just a moment as we add in the background. Now, in some cases, as I'm searching a background image, I might be able to just type in my theme word and get a great image. And in fact, I kind of like this black and white one right here. But what I'm looking for is a image that has a nice amount of contrast and negative space. So negative space is basically the space around the image where I can place my content. And I want to make sure that the contrast is strong enough for my message to stand out for my visual and not be distracting. So if I were not able to find something that worked well with my theme of connection, I could also just search hands here, see what comes up. It's going to yield me similar results if that's a visual metaphor that I want to use. Okay. Now I'm going to go back and let's just use the word connection here because I do like that original photo that we looked at. This one right here. Okay, and I'll show you why I like this one. As I mentioned, you've got some nice negative space. There's some nice clean lines that you can work with to arrange your content. But then also, if we're looking at the brand for Dippler, Dippler has this white, bright and dark green, and some black in their logo. Okay, so the black and white background is actually going to work quite nicely as I bring in more of their brand assets and colors. So let's bring this in here. Now that I've got their logo brought in, I want to do just a little bit more visual connection here with their brand. So I'm also going to come up here to style, and I've got their colors preset based on their logo. So I've created a custom color palette. And maybe I passed it up. No, well, I don't see it. So let's go ahead and just create a new one. Let's go into create new. We'll call this one Dippler, and we'll upload this from a logo here. So bonus tip here, if you can't find a color palette that works perfectly for you, uploading from logo or background image is a really nice way to create a really beautiful, cohesive color palette. Let's go ahead and save that. All right. So next thing I want to do is let's just resize these a little bit here. Kind of following the lines of our visual metaphor in the background. All right, so now we've got strategies, engagement, and purpose. And next thing I want to do is bring in a little bit more transparency to my topic. So I'm going to click on them, and I'm going to go to my fill color. And rather than a solid fill, let's change this over to a linear gradient. And I'm going to do a black and a green linear gradient here. And here's why. So notice that right now, if I change this over, as I zoom in, I'm keeping some of that background metaphor in place. This is now not 100% opaque, so my audience is still maintaining that visual context of the metaphor of connection. And as I build in my content, that will be visible in the background. Also, the colors are rising from the black into the green, maintaining a nice, strong kind of grounding factor with this idea of connection with our hands in the background. So I'm going to change that for each of these here. And of course, you could just do one of these and then copy and paste, but we already have our titles in there. So I'll just go ahead and change these quickly. All right, there we go. So now as I zoom on in, this one is talking about strategies. So if I zoom in here, I want to add in a visual that talks about strategy. So let's go back over to our search here. And our Google image search, a couple things that immediately stand out. We've got some targets. We've got some gears that fit together, puzzle pieces, chess. That's a very common theme here as we continue to scroll. So with that in mind, I might come back over here and let's go over to our media and images. And from here, you can choose to search either the Unsplash visuals. We have GIFs, stickers. Those are powered by Giphy, not by Prezi. So proceed with caution. Some are more work appropriate than others. And then you also have your icons. Now for Dipper specifically, they have a really nice kind of clean logo here, right? So one of the things that I like to do when I'm working with organizations that have really clean lines in their branding, I like to choose icons that are going to kind of match those visuals. So in this case, let's stick here with our icons and let's search chess. And notice that there's going to be many different types of icons, right? Different categories. So everything that's going to be a little bit more like a doodle or an illustration through something that looks a little bit more clean lines and filled here. Okay. So let's pick one of these here. This one's off to the side. And again, let's go think back to that tip. Let's not overthink it too much in terms of the visual icon that we're using, because the goal here is to have something that is easily understood by your audience and stands out after the fact. So at this point, you can come back in and add in a little bit of your text, but what you don't want to do is add in all of this in terms of bullet points, right? So think about taking the keywords that stand out from here, and those are actually going to be what you'll put onto your slide here. The rest of your text, this should actually be part of your presenter notes. So again, going back to the idea of your message being heard over your content, your presenter notes is where you actually want to add in the bulk of that text that you would normally be sharing on a slide. This way you're actually able to speak it to your audience and they can actually focus on what you're saying rather than trying to read your slide here. So a couple simple visual cues on your presentation are going to be enough to convey the idea of your message while they can actually focus on what you're saying and the finer points of it. All right, so we could, of course, spend quite a bit more time building out this presentation, but that is kind of the idea here of how to get started transforming your text into visual stories. And it is fast and furious to the end of our 30-minute demo here. So with that, I am going to come back to the main group, open it up for Q&A. And just as a reminder here, the next 15 minutes are for your Q&A. So if there's something that you have questions about how to do in the product, questions about our content today, all of that is fair game. So I will hang out here for those questions to come up. And I'm going to, while I'm waiting for those, let me pull back my presentation here. And I am going to invite you to next week's presentation in just a moment. So stay tuned for more details on that, but let's take a look at our questions. Great question here. So once you have a template, how do you save it to reuse? Great question. So let me switch back to our screen share here. And I'm going to start over here on our dashboard. Let me actually rearrange my presentation over to my other monitor. Okay, so if you're on our dashboard here and you go into create from template, all of our different products have a template library. And if you click into that template library, you're going to see that there's a pretty vast array of templates once this loads here. Now, any of these templates that you find here, they're always going to be in the library for you to choose from. We do occasionally refresh them, but you can always start from template here by clicking on it. Use this template, and that's going to open up into your own copy of that presentation for you to start building. But let's say you have a template and you're like, this is my favorite template. I don't want to search for it. I just want to reuse this template every single time, right? Well, in that case, what you're going to do is find it in the template library. So click on it. We're going to use this template, pop it open into the editor. Now, once you do, before you start building out your presentations, or your current presentation, I should say, up where it says untitled presentation, give this a title that indicates to you that this is your favorite template, your master copy, what you're going to be building off in the future. So I'm just going to call this one master copy template. Okay. So now this is saved. And if I return back over to my dashboard here and I look at my presentations, here's the master copy template that we just saved. And if I want to find all of my master copy templates or favorite templates, I'm going to find that keyword that I saved under. So in this case, I would have used master. So if I have 5 different master copy templates of my favorite templates, all 5 at this point would pop up for me. Now, rather than going in and editing, which is what I would normally do to a presentation, I don't want to affect one of my saved templates. So I'm just going to click here and I'm going to make a copy. Now I can start building out this presentation from that copy without altering the original. So if you have favorite templates and you don't want to search through the template library every time you go to create a presentation, that's what you would do. You would open it up the first time, save a master copy to your dashboard as your own file, and then just make a copy from your dashboard every time you want to reuse that one. And it's a couple extra steps. However, if you've perused our template library before, you know that there's quite a few templates here, and they are occasionally shuffled around, right? So per category here, you might find that the template that was previously in the top right corner is now in the lower left, somewhere in the middle. So it can make it a little bit tricky sometimes to find those templates if one has been added, things have been shuffled around. So any of those favorite templates, that's what I would recommend doing. All right, so let me go over here to our next question. All right, I got a couple in the chat and then also in the Q&A. So let me catch up in the chat here, and then I'll go over to the Q&A. Next question, do I have to use a special template if I want to use a presentation with Prezi Video? Also a great question. Let's take a look. So if you're in our template chooser, and you want to create a immersive style presentation, you'll notice in the left-hand side, all of these categories here of different templates. And we have a special category for video templates. Now, you'll know that you're in a video template category by the avatar that is in the background. And all of these templates that you see under the video template category, their content is optimized in terms of how it's arranged so that there's going to be space for you as a speaker. Okay, so this is a recommendation of where I would start if I'm building out a presentation for video. Now, that said, what if I have a presentation like this, and it's actually not built for video, right? There's content arranged all over it, and there's a background in place. Well, the thing to keep in mind is that any presentation from any of these categories can actually be turned into a video. And basically what happens when you use a presentation, let me go back to edit here. When you use any presentation and you want to turn it into a video, the background is going to become transparent. Let me turn my camera on here. So if I were to import this presentation into Prezi Video to use it, here's what happens. The background goes away, but the content that's built in is still there. So if I have a presentation that's already set up like this, I just have to rearrange the content so it's not over my face here. Okay, because as I'm going through, I'm still going to be visible, but this is going to be distracting from me as I'm presenting. Okay, so that's why when you're starting to build your video presentations, if you already know you want to present over video, immersed in your content, any of these are going to be a great place to start, because let's open one up in the template here and you'll see while there is a background in place here, once you turn on your camera, that's going to go away and you can see all of your content is neatly arranged to the side. So it's never going to cover where you will be as presenter. And it just helps with creating less editing work for you. All right, let me close out of this before my computer gets mad at me for multiple camera feeds. But let me know if that answers your question. Let's see. All right, some great questions coming in here. All right, first question here. I find it hard to add a page or just a page to a topic without it showing on the main page. Just a page to a topic without showing on the main page. Well, so one thing to keep in mind about the structure of a Prezi, and let me get back over here to the one that we were building out. When you are building out your presentation, and you may already know this, so some of this may be background information for you. However, when you're building out a presentation in Prezi Present, you'll have your background image, your universal image, and then your topics are built onto that canvas. It's kind of like almost like a home page in that, or excuse me, a website in that you've got your home page. Let's go into present mode here. And then from your home page, you can click into a topic, kind of like you would click into a link to navigate to different areas of the web page. And then as you click back, you go back to your home page, right? So click into the next link, back to the home page. So that's why every time you add in a topic from this point, either by adding in a planet topic or a stack topic, it's always going to show on the overview. Now, if you zoom into a topic and add in a subtopic at this point, it won't show in the overview, but it is going to be present from your subtopic. Okay, and it'll appear once you zoom in. Now, another thing that's important to understand in terms of how these will show up for you as you're building out your presentation is that there's two different topic types in Prezi. Okay, so the primary one is going to be this, what we call a planet type topic. Okay, and that's a topic that allows you to have a parent topic and then a subtopic or multiple subtopics, right? So kind of creating different compartments or chunks of your content. There's also what we call a stack topic. You might also hear this stack topic referenced as a page. And a page is basically, think of it like a stack of paper. It's like a mini slideshow, slide one, or slide two, slide three, in a more like page-based linear format. So what happens when I zoom into a stack-based topic is that this is going to add in a page. Okay. And I can add in multiple pages once I'm within that topic, but the topic itself is always going to appear on your overview from the point that you add it. Now, going a little bit further into that, let's say I want that topic, but I don't want it to appear here. I can also change my topic cover by going into advanced topic editing and removing the topic there, or topic cover there. Now, when I go into present mode, that content is still there and I can still click into it and reveal whatever pages I have built out here. But that's the only way to sort of hide your page or your topic from the main overview. And I know it gets a little bit into the weeds here of the structure of Prezi Present and topics. However, long answer long. I hope that helped a little bit, but let me know any follow-up questions that you have. And also, I can send some follow-up information after a session that will help kind of define that a little bit further. All right, is it possible to copy a page from one subtopic and paste it into another? It is, it just depends on the structure of the topic and whether it is a planet topic or a stack topic. So let's say I wanted to let's zoom in here. And here's my topic. And I decide, actually, I don't want this subtopic here. I need it to be under a different topic. Well, I can copy and paste it using my keyboard shortcuts or right-clicking and then going into copy. I can also save this into my library and move it around that way. So let's delete it from here and go back out to my overview. And let's say I want to move this subtopic into purpose. Now, if I zoom in, there's no subtopics here, but I can paste it using my keyboard shortcuts or right-clicking. And I can also go into my library, okay, by clicking our three dots here in my library. And then here is the topic that I've saved. Now, when I do this save to library, it's copying over all of the content that was built into this, right? So any photos, any extra text here, any subtopics, that would also carry over as well. So copy and paste can definitely be your best friend as you're moving things around Prezi. And also right-clicking and adding to your library is a great way to save your content as you're building if you're not sure exactly where it's going to live yet. When I have bullet points, is it not possible to add animations to one bullet point at a time? Great question. That is not possible. So let me just go in here. So if you have a bullet point text box, basically what you would want to do is add in separate text boxes to fade those in. And the reason is an animation is going to treat a text box as a whole. So if you have multiple bullet point lines, each one of those is considered part of the whole text box element. So when you add in an animation, it fades in the entire text box, not the individual bullet point. So to make your life easier, what you'd want to do is, instead of having one single text box, you can fade in multiple separate text boxes. Okay. Now, if I have a few different text boxes, I don't want to necessarily go through and align all of these. So the first thing I'm going to do is hold down Shift and then just multi-select my text boxes. And then from my property bar, I'm going to use my alignment options. Okay. So let's use our alignment and first align over to the left. And then let's go ahead and just distribute them vertically. And now I can go in and let's add in those animations to fade those in. And I'll just click on them, fade in, fade in, fade in. Okay. So it is possible to do. You just have to add in those individual bullet point text boxes to do separate fade in animations. Otherwise, a program will treat it as a whole text box. Also, I know that we are just at our scheduled time here. So if anyone has to jump, I just do want to reiterate, you will receive the recording of this session. I will send that out in about 24 hours, along with any follow-up materials that I promised. So if you have to move on with your day, I just want to say thank you for being here. And I will continue to answer the Q&A. And I can hang out for a few more minutes here to make sure we get all of those answered. What is the best practice with a template with video if you're doing a small head in the corner? So currently the Prezi video does not allow you to do kind of like a small head in the corner type of presentation. There are programs out there that will let you do that. However, when you are using Prezi video for your presentation, let me just turn my video back on here. Your video feed becomes the background of your presentation. So currently, your video feed just takes over your 16:9 frame within your presentation. And there's no way to control where that's going to appear, big or small, overlaid with the presentation, because it does become the background of your actual camera feed. So you can build out your content a little bit if you want to change where your content falls around that. But in terms of resizing that camera shape or camera feed, that's currently not possible within Prezi Video. All right. I think as of right now, caught up on the Q&A, we've answered all of those. I will send additional information about subtopics and how those behave and adjusting the topic covers to make them visible or invisible. But I think looks like we're good to go as far as the Q&A here. So I will just pop over. I do want to invite you to our next session. Again, the Prezi Like a Pro Power Sessions is something that we host every week on Tuesday with a different rotating topic. So next week, my colleague Jules is going to talk about how to Prezify your PowerPoint. So in other words, kind of building on a little bit of what we talked about today, but taking those slide-based presentations, bringing them into Prezi and creating a more dynamic, engaging presentation. So I will send out a registration link with our recap email when I send the recording, but you can also scan this QR code and find out more information and register via the link that it takes you to. So thank you for your time today. Appreciate you taking some time out of the schedule. I hope you found today's session helpful, and hopefully we'll see you next week. As a reminder, even if you can't join live, do sign up anyway, because we will send the recording even if you don't attend the live session. You'll get that anyway. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Appreciate your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, everyone.